4 years ago during the initial invasion, and then subsequently a year later. But since then, obviously the situation on the ground has changed, and it turned from an initial invasion and punching through into Baghdad to now an occupation. So when people wanted to hear my stories, I was questioning and saying, well, are they really relevant? And I'm not, well, I was there 4 years ago, and I don't really know exactly. But then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, no, my experiences are absolutely relevant, because what I was a part of and what we did during that invasion absolutely just set the tone for the next 4 years of brutal occupation. The lack of respect for human life that we showed, the lack of respect for the Iraqis, for their culture, and for our own troops, laid the groundwork and laid the foundation for what was to come. The whole time going north, here I am, scared shitless of weapons of mass destruction. And then I get home and come to find out that the only weapons of mass destruction that were ever in Iraq were the ones that we brought there. My battalion was using these tank rounds that had depleted uranium in them. And depleted uranium is an extremely effective weapon. It's a really dense byproduct, nuclear waste, and it can penetrate armor very effectively. Now, the problem with that is that when it does penetrate armor, it just instantly vaporizes and creates billions of poisonous, particular aerosol particles that go into the air and poison everything for miles around. And this was used extensively during the First Gulf War, and they've looked at cancer rates in Basra, for example, that have gone up exponentially. And we use this, like, widespread, even 2-3 years later into the war. It's like, why are we using an armor-piercing munition when the Iraqis don't even have armor? They're running around and planting roadside bombs. And here we are using this munition that is radioactive and poisons people and is extremely toxic and kills people. And of course, we don't even have to use this. There are other dense metals we could use, tungsten, for example, but it's more expensive. Instead, with the depleted uranium, the Department of Defense gets it for free, because it's a waste byproduct, and they need to get rid of it somehow. So all this talk about weapons of mass destruction, and it was actually us that was using it on the Iraqi people. In the military, we're taught that when civilians die, it's just collateral damage. It's just, oops, we're sorry. But, I mean, it's policy. When, during the invasion, we were set to go through Nasiriyah. And this is about the time of Jessica Lynch. And the Army had already gone through, and they said that the town had been pacified. And then the Marines went through and got hit really hard. And about 18 Marines died that first day we went through. So somebody high up came down and said, we're going weapons free. Normally, we have what we call rules of engagement. So you can only shoot somebody under certain conditions. For example, if they have a uniform on or if they're carrying a weapon. Well, weapons free meant you could shoot anyone. Anything that moved, it died. And that was the order that was given. So I sat on the bridge going into Nasiriyah, and for a whole night listened as a whole battalion of tanks and gunships went through and just laid waste to the city. And they did shoot anything that moved. And the next morning, I got to see what that looked like. It was fucking disgusting. I mean, to the point of shooting donkeys, just for sport. And this came down. This was policy. This was an order given. They legalized murder of civilians. So, you know, that's what I have on my soul, and I'm trying to take responsibility for what I was a part of. And at the same time, you know, I feel that this country has not stepped up to take responsibility for their part that they've played in what's happening over there. Because this is being done in our name. I mean, there's just this complete disconnect. And when people meet me and they find out I'm a veteran, and they'll just kind of like change the subject. I mean, there's a disconnect there. Why isn't this a topic of conversation at everyone's dinner table? At every dinner party you go to? Why is the war not on the forefront of everyone's mind? You know, why have we become conditioned to just live with this war? You know, for the last 4 years, you know, I haven't had the luxury to think about anything but this war. So we need to raise the bar, and we need to raise the level of discourse in this country, on campuses, in your homes, in your relationships, and we need to raise awareness, because once you're aware of what's going on, then you have responsibility, and if you know that we're killing women and children, then you're responsible now. You have that knowledge. You can't back away from that. You can't say, well, I didn't know. Well, let it be known. We're killing women and children in Iraq. We're doing it on a mass scale. So, you know, we can't win a crime. We can only stop a crime. Right before this event, we were just being interviewed and said, well, what's your solution? There is no solution. We just need to leave. We are we are inflaming this insurgency. I mean, there was no insurgency when I went there. There is now. We have created this insurgency. It's our tactics, it's our methods. It's this reaction from the military that if they get hit with a roadside bomb, then they go and just spray. They just shoot in all directions. Roadside bomb goes up, they just start shooting because they're scared and they want revenge, and so they just shoot. And that kills civilians on a mass scale. And it's ridiculous because the people that planted that bomb aren't even there. You know, they're miles away, they're long gone. And yet, that's the policy. When you get hit, you shoot. They call it a show of force. That's why we're inflaming the insurgency. That's why we're killing innocent civilians. So, April 28th is a national day of impeachment. So let's get out there and organize and show them that we mean this, and that this is not going to be our legacy when we look back in history about our generation, that you know, people will judge us. We have this on our souls.